I got 500. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 420 Live. Jeff Kravitz, your host. I don't know what I got 500 of, but actually, I was just reading the thing 500 hours till they vote. There, you saw them today, the clowns, everybody up there trying to defend their position. If you're not watching CNN, I don't blame you, or any of the other news channels. That's why you're here. We're here to distract you from this craziness, this Supreme Court nuttiness, this election craziness, but it's like watching a train wreck. It's like, but today there's always like a bright, a ray of light in the clouds. Today's ray of light was the lines in Georgia to vote were miles long of people 6 feet apart, and all with masks on. And I couldn't believe the guy was driving, and the line just kept on going. People are stepping up. And if you're like me, you have a couple days. I've already done this, but if you go to headcount.org, they will let you know if you're registered to vote. You have limited time. Today, I think it's 7 states. It's your last day to register to vote, but also on Headcount, and also at Ballotpedia and other sites of the like. They can help you in your local election and with your all the ballots and the what do they call them? The different things, the propositions. There you go. See, not that bad. 420 hasn't got me that bad today. I pulled out propositions. So the propositions, the things you vote for, the people, the downvote, like in LA, our district attorney is horrible. So for me, she is out. I'm going to vote her out. I know everybody else is too. She pulled a gun on a bunch of people in front of her house. I mean, this lady's a lunatic. So I think that, we have, it's our time. I really feel like we are speaking. It's our time. The people are ready to speak. I've never seen anything like it in my life. When you look at Headcount, you see how many people they registered to vote today, and you see what people are up to. It's absolutely astounding what's going on out there. You just cannot wrap your head around it. How people are getting involved, and how people are getting other people involved, and educating people, and, talking to their neighbors and finding out what they're doing. And, some neighbors don't agree. Some family members don't agree. But the one thing we can agree on is that we all have the right to vote, and we're all going to exercise that right on November 3rd. So, if you watch the stars like me, you'll know that Mercury is about to go into retrograde in the next day. It's already started on some fronts. I heard someone complaining the other day about how everything was going technologically wrong. And it just sent me right to Google. As I'm listening to the person talk, like, I did this and this broke, did that broke, and then this went down, and then that happened. And I'm like, when's Mercury going to retrograde? And I'm like, in 5 days. And I'm like, yeah, this is the pre-jitters. So make sure you shore up what you got going on out there, folks, and get everybody ready, because things go a little haywire. I'm big on karma. I'm big on feeling the energy, and I feel the energy changing. I could feel the shift changing, especially once he got COVID. I really felt things take a turn. After that debate, also, things took a turn. The fly on the head of the dead guy took a turn, and it just keeps on turning left. I just keep watching the whole thing turn left. And, I am all for sanity. I'm not making this a political thing at all, because for me, it's the most sane guy. And if you saw 60 Minutes last night, the Lincoln Project was on, and there's nothing I love more than the ads the Lincoln Project's doing right now and what they have going down. So if you're watching the Lincoln Project and you're seeing their ads and seeing the way they just hammer away at this guy, it's beautiful. It's why we're seeing Republicans or Democratic candidate is something I've never noticed before in my entire life. So I'm happy to say that, things are progressing and things are going on, and, we're here. We're here to distract. It's something we've been doing for many, many months now, 7 months. We show 150 was on Friday. If you tuned in, we talked to Annabelle Lukin and Ivan Neville and Anders Osborne. We were talking about their issues with sobriety and how they became sober. And it was so unbelievably on point and on target that it kind of scared me that I got such an amazing reaction from people. The reaction didn't scare me, but just how effective it could be when you reach people and it resonates, and the amount of people that reached out to me and reached out to Annabelle to tell them that it really meant something to them. So thank you all for tuning into that. We got a big week planned, but today we got Freekbass. Freekbass is a fellow host here at Osiris Media. and he has been keeping everybody entertained. Bass player, musician from Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're going to welcome him to 420 Live. Hello, Freak Bass.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's good to be here. It's good to be good to be on this side of the microphone.
Yeah, is that interesting for you?
It's tripped out, man, because the show started. It was right when the pandemic started, and I was just going on my Facebook page, basically just to connect, with fans and stuff, just to kind of check in, like how's everybody doing. And then I started giving people throughout the week. They're like, okay, so what time are you going on this week? And I was like, I didn't know I was going on again this week, and then kind of people were kind of like almost expecting me to be there. And then I started having some guests on, and the next thing you know, it just ends up kind of being a regular Saturday night thing. So it kind of happened organically, but it's great. I mean, it's always great talking to other musicians and other human beings and seeing how everybody's dealing with this life that we're in right now. So yeah, it's a trip.
Did you have any experience before you stepped in on that Facebook Live?
Well, I do. I've done a radio show. I've been on a radio show in Cincinnati. There was a station called WNKU, which is an NPR station, and I got hired to do this show called Funky Fridays with Freekbass. I started in 2016, and unfortunately, when the governor, not the governor they have now, but the Tea Party guy they had, he basically cut all the funding for any kind of extracurricular stuff for school. So WNKU, unfortunately, was one of the first things that got cut. But the show did get picked up by someone else. And so it's on another station right now, WVXU, which is another NPR related station. So anyway, on that side of the microphone, I have had a little bit of experience with the interview thing and dealing with that.
How about the camera?
But not so much that side. No. I mean, doing stuff where I've been interviewed, but not where I'm interviewing someone else. So
what was your learning curve like when it came to the technology and learning all the apps and how you can have guests? Because Facebook Live, when I went, that's how I started also.
Yeah.
But for me, it just was like, oh, this doesn't work.
Right. Well, OBS was a big one for me when I learned how to use that. That was, right when I just kind of lived on YouTube like a lot of people do for hours and hours and hours and did exploration. Was Zoom better? Is this better? And for me, for my show, I think it stands for Online Broadcasting System. And
Open broadcasting.
Oh, open broadcast system. Okay,
it's free, right? OBS.
Yeah, it's a free software. I mean,
but difficult to use, right?
It takes a little. You gotta. Yeah, I mean, there is a learning curve for sure. But once it's very logical the way it's laid out. I mean, you as long as you don't mind watching YouTube for a few hours, anybody can barrel through it. And but now, I mean, it's it's a skill that I've had this. There are little silver linings in this crazy world we're living in, and this is one of the things. I'm sure if I was still touring, I probably wouldn't have ever gone down this road before again. And so it's been a new experience for sure.
And what have you learned about yourself?
You mean being stuck at home forever?
And having to do a show and having to dig in.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's I guess trying to take yourself at, just being on this side of the microphone, the other side of the microphone, I guess being the interviewer is just a new experience. It's fascinating, but, and I'm sure, Jeff, it's just it's basically just having a conversation with someone. I love Chit-Chat. That's why I call the show Saturday Night Chit-Chat, because I got a lot of hillbilly in me and I can sit and chit-chat all night long. And so you get a couple musicians, all they do backstage is sit there and talk about stuff. That's right. what we do, so it's just that we're doing it in front of a bunch of people now. And so it seemed like it wasn't too bad of a transition,
So talk about how you're from Cincinnati. Is that where you were born and raised?
Yep. Born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And when did you take up the bass?
Well, I started off as a drummer first, and then played a little bit of guitar, which I still play guitar as well. But this is going to sound really kind of crazy, but the bass almost felt like it kind of called out to me. Cincinnati, it's a big funk hub, Zapp, Ohio Players, Bootsy Collins, of course. And when I was growing up, when I was a kid, it was, a lot of my friends were listening to like Green Day and Nirvana and stuff like that. And But I was always fascinated by like Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and I was getting into like all the hip hop stuff, which all that version of hip hop was all samples of P Funk and Bootsy and Zap and Ohio Players, which were all from where I grew up. And so just the sound of the bass and just like the physical chunk, even guitar, even today. I mean, I play a lot of guitar still, but I always feel like it's real delicate. Like if I play too hard, I'm going to break it, or if I'm going to break a string real easy. I'm so heavy handed. And bass, I love like the chunkiness of it. Like not only just the sound chunkiness and the thickness of it, but the physical. It just like seeing those 4 thick strings on there. It just felt. I always felt really at home with it. And like I said, being a drummer too, like even when I create bass lines now, I'm always thinking of like, I'm just creating beats, but my beats just have notes to them. So that's kind of the thought process I go through. And again, growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, the funk thing here, it's huge. It doesn't matter whether you're from the suburbs or the inner city or the rural or urban, doesn't matter. It's always around here in Cincinnati. It's just kind of in our water here. And so it just seemed like it was a real natural fit for me as a bass player to kind of segue into the kind of style of music I did. And that's a cool thing I think about funk too, is that it's so regional. I mean, there's the Ohio sound.
I remember the Ohio Players, of course. And
yes.
I remember Bootsy, but I didn't realize that Cincinnati was the hotbed where all these guys came from.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know Cleveland was the hotbed of rock and roll, right?
Yep.
That's where rock and roll was born. And,
yep.
I guess just down the road in Cincinnati was where funk was born.
Yeah, I mean, you had, obviously Bootsy and, James Brown had King Records here, James is not from Cincinnati. He's from Augusta, Georgia, but his record label was in Cincinnati. That's how Bootsy got on the map, because James ended up picking him up at his record label. And like I said, Zap, the Ohio Players, Lakeside, oh my gosh, there's just so many bands from this era. Slave, which is another big funk band, all from the Ohio era too. It's basically Dayton or Cincinnati. That whole 20-minute drive up and down 75 north that's where it's always been. Yeah. So Midnight Star, in the 80s, you had Midnight Star and the Callaways and Babyface came from a band called The Deal, who are from this area too as well. So it's always been just a hub of funk here, funk and bluegrass, which is a weird combination. But Cincinnati's right on we're almost like a twin city, because we're right on the verge we're right on Kentucky. So it's like you've got Cincinnati and then northern Kentucky. It's basically the same media market. So you're getting that rural mix with that urban kind of combined, and I think part of that tension is kind of what added to it too as well.
Right, because you have the two different politics. Of course, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where, you cross over the Ohio River, that's where the Freedom Center is here in Cincinnati, because of that reason right there, because that was where the South became the North, right there in the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So steeped in history and right in the middle of everything we're going through right now, too.
Yeah, you can tell me about it. Yeah.
Like Ohio is a state that everybody's wants.
Yeah, well, I mean, Obama won it twice. W. Bush won it twice.
No, I don't think a president's ever won the presidency without winning Ohio.
Yeah, it's tough to do with. I mean, it's a very, so, I'm keeping my fingers crossed the way it's looking right now. It's looking pretty good right now, but it's.
No, well, people are coming out. The early voting in Ohio too, I heard.
Yep. Started last Tuesday. Yep, we started October 6th. Yep. So, and the lines have been just, like you were saying about Georgia, they've been crazy here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it portends for well. So how did you hook up with Bootsy Collins and get? I know he named you Freekbass.
Yeah,
because you weren't born Freekbass. Your mom didn't say this is Freekbass, right?
Nah, not yet. Like I told you earlier off air, she makes me birthday cakes with that now. But she, well, the reason that I'll make it a long story short is so one of his singers is a guy named Gary Mudbone Cooper. Mudbone's he's Bootsy's original singer. He's on a lot of the George Clinton material. He's also a Cincinnati guy. He was having me do I was starting to kind of, right after high school, I was starting to kind of make my name a little bit around Cincinnati as a bass player. And so he asked me if I wanted to play on some demo stuff for him. And I was like, yeah, of course, of course. And so he said, well, there's a label in Japan called P-Vine Records, and they're doing a Jimi Hendrix tribute record with all these funk bands doing songs about Jimi Hendrix. So he said, his name's Mudbone. He said, me and Michael Hampton, who's Kid Funkadelic, are doing a track together, and we wanted to see if you wanted to play bass on it. And I was like, well, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. And I said, well, cool. Well, I'll pick you up Tuesday. We're going to go out to Bootsy's house. He's going to produce an engineer just off the cuff. We're going out to Bootsy's. And I was like, what? We're going where and whose house and when and what? I was like, that cartoon thing, where your head starts spinning. And so long story short, Bootsy was producing and engineering the track. And so we went out there, and him and I just hit it off like right off the bat. And I can still, like, it was yesterday, feel like he's opening the door, and I could see he looked like he was 10 feet tall when he opened the door. And but the nicest guy. He's the type of guy that feels like you've known him for 30 years, even if you just met him. And so he, we just met, and he didn't really I think he was, be honest with you, he was having trouble remembering my name. And he's like, I started plugging in all these weird effects and stuff there in the studio. And he's like, hey man, you got that freaky bass thing going on over there, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I think so, or whatever. And then as the day went on, he's like, hey, Freekbass, come over here and put that, like, so as the day, and then everybody around the studio just started calling me Freekbass, and then it just kind of stuck. And then that's kind of how, in a nutshell, how the whole thing came. And that's how And then a couple weeks later, he called me up, and then he's like, why don't you come out to the studio? And I just started going. I'd be out there for 6, 7, 8 hours, and it was all, of course, when I went out there, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna learn this really cool bass guitar stuff, and it was really all about production and how to record in the studio versus live versus studio, getting levels correct. It was all this really heavy duty technical stuff to be able to make Boots from the school of, like, he wasn't trying to make me Bootsy number 2. He's like, teach a man to fish, he can fish for life kind of mentality. So he was just showing me just different how to basically set myself up for my own career, which was something I'll, obviously be in debt to him forever for that.
Yeah, well, that is a beautiful spirit. I mean, I've met him many times, photographed him many times. He's an incredible player. And the fact that a guy like that wants you to play bass, and we all know Bootsy's full of flair, and I can't help but notice that you also got a hell of a lot of flair going on. Was that something you picked up before you started hanging out with Bootsy, or was that something that he kind of that bled off on you?
No, I've always been into the visual thing. I mean, always, like, I'm a big Bowie fan too as well. I've always liked to me, it's always like a multimedia thing, the visual, Talking Heads, same thing. It's like a, they all go together. And I think, going to the Ohio thing, and I always kind of joke about this, but I think there's some truth about it. Cincinnati, the fact that we're not New York City and we're not Los Angeles and we're not Miami, we're like that kid in the back of the class that's got to yell a little bit louder and put his hand up a little bit higher and a little bit more, hey, pay more attention to me because I'm not these guys. So there's probably a little bit of that going on too with us Cincinnati people, Bootsy, myself, just like, hey, and even the funk kind of reflects that, because it's like, you listen to the funk that comes here, it's like really super heavy and on the one, and like, like almost cartoonish how intense it is. And so we're all just being cartoon characters here in Cincinnati. You got to entertain yourselves in Cincinnati one way or the other, and that's the way we do it, I guess.
You got to keep yourself busy, huh? And you got to keep yourself engaged. And it is good. You've created a whole personality. Freekbass is like a superhero almost.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Well, that's kind of the idea. He's supposed to be more of a symbol more than anything else, so that's great.
Well, it's an alter ego, right? It's something you create that's bigger than yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
And talk about your music and your band.
Well, we've been really, up until, of course, the pandemic hit, but we really kind of were batting on all cylinders. We recently signed with a really great label. I know you probably had Eddie Roberts on the show. Eddie's has this amazing label called Color Red. So, I mean, that was a blessing too, hooking up with Eddie, and the kind of funk.
He's a huge talent, and he's really done a great job of providing a place for young musicians to have an outlet for their music.
Yeah, and to record the records the way that they were recorded back in the like you'd hear, all these funk records that were all influenced by, and like, why can't our records sound like that? Well, because you're not recording them the same way that they recorded them, and Eddie does that. You go in the studio, you record this, you do a whole take fully as a band, and if you get to the last 10 seconds and someone messes up, you don't go and overdub it. You start at the very beginning again and do another take, and that's all that the breath of the material. That's what comes across on the recording. And so it's been amazing working with them. And so, yeah, so that's been just an amazing thing. And then so from touring, obviously you meet more and more people. My drummer, a guy named, his name's Rico Lewis. He toured with George Clinton for 15 years, and we met. Bernie Worrell was doing a show, and Bernie had both him and I come up and sit in on a tune, and we just immediately hit it off. And when I was looking for a drummer, I called him immediately. So we, that starts there with the rhythm section. And then, of course, Sammy Garrett, who's been with me now for almost 3 years now, which is weird to think about. But from Turquoise, I would go in and sit in with Turquoise at festivals and stuff. And Sammy and I were always talking about doing something together. And when we were doing this last batch of material, the guy that's producing, he was saying, hey, we should get some female vocals on this. I was like, well, I think I know a girl that might be great for it. And Sammy did it. And she's crazy and visual like I am too as well. So
Turquoise is also a very visual band.
Yeah.
Big,
Exactly. Yeah. So it worked out really good. So we're trying to, we're releasing a single a month right now through Color Red, as opposed to trying to release so one single, one video, one single, one. So we just released a single Friday on Color Red, and we have a video coming out this coming week. So each song has a video, accompanying video. So since we can't go out and play live, we're trying to, recreate, at least trying to keep everybody some new fresh music always popping all the time,
And how are you guys working together? You just sending each other tracks and
yeah, I mean, yeah, with for new material, yeah. Luckily, a lot of the big chunk of the stuff we were recorded at Color Red right before the pandemic. I mean, it was literally like a month before the shutdown happened. We were at Color Red for about a week and a half recording a ton of material. So that's where the crux of all this is coming from right now. But as we're writing new material, obviously, yeah, we're sending files back and forth and doing that stuff for new material, what we're going to have once we get through this batch of material.
And how do you keep the cash rolling in times like this when you can't tour? And
I mean, for me, it's teaching. I teach a ton too, teach bass and guitar lessons, and that's and I was doing that before even the pandemic as well. And now on top of new platforms that Mark Brownstein has.
So that's now they rebranded that, right? That's now Go Lively.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but it's a great thing because especially for so many people that see us on the road that want to take lessons with us that might, not live in the same city. Everybody's doing everything on Zoom now. And I was doing a lot of that before even the pandemic hit. So I had a little bit of a head start. And that's kind of what's keeping my head above water right now is just teaching, but which I love doing even when I am touring. But, this not touring thing. I'm sure all your guests tell you the same thing. And me
personal, I'm used to being on the road and I'm taking photos at events and concerts and festivals and award shows and whatever. And now all that's kind of dried up. It's all become canned.
Yeah.
So like they're doing the Billboard Awards, and the Billboard Awards aren't even going to be live, and they're not even going to be in Vegas, but they're going to be in Vegas. I mean, everything's done. They make it a virtual event, and who knows if we're going to ever get back to that because our country can't agree on how we should handle this. I
mean, what's your your gut feeling on live music? I mean, not drive-in concert type live music, but I'm talking about.
It's interesting because I see things, I read things about how effective it would be if everybody wore a mask and how that's how people are beating it right now. If we're going to wait for a vaccine, then we have a long time. But if we could figure out a different way with either testing people before you go into an event or stuff like that, it might be sooner rather than later. But I think like we have backyard parties here in LA where people are getting a little blood prick and they're taking they're testing everybody before you go in, So my gut is that I would like to say it's going to be next year, but I don't think we're going to have anything major in 2022, mainly because Live Nation, when they put somebody out, they want to do a whole country tour, right? Yeah. They don't want to do like just the states where they allow it, because who knows the stuff going on in Florida right now. I saw Ron DeSantis, the governor, at a rally today. It looked like there were 20,000 people there, nobody with masks on, everybody high-fiving and around. So I don't really know what's going to happen, because I feel like I've been waiting 2 weeks to figure it out since March. It's like, in 2 weeks we're gonna have a better idea. In 2 weeks we have a better idea, and it's just we're in this pattern. So I don't know. I think if we can't come to an agreement, then it's going to be a long time. And I think it might be other countries like China. is wide open right now, and they're having there was a picture from the wall, the Great Wall of China the other day, packed with tourists. And I guess they had a case in one of the cities. I just read one of the provinces where they saw it start to increase. They test 9 million people in a couple days, to stamp it out. So people have courses of action, and
New Zealand too. I mean, I saw like they had some big I don't know, it was like a soccer match or something. I mean, it was like full-fledged stadium packed to the gills in there. They've had like 2 cases in the last 3 months or whatever it is, Well,
it shows what happens when you're effective with a plan. You have a plan, and unfortunately, we're in the hands of idiots, and they stopped all the fun. You got to admit, they stopped the fun. They closed the bars. They closed everything, and it just was unreal to me. And now I understand people saying they don't want to close the businesses down. And I think if we all wear masks, we can have our businesses and be safe. But we need some kind of cohesive a plan that everybody's on board, So I hate to say it, because I don't think Live Nation or Fish or any of these bands that are not touring are going to have their legal department say, "Oh yeah, you guys go out and play. You're fine."
Right.
It's going to be but, and then at the last minute. I mean, how many things have you been invited to in the past couple months where you start planning, and then a couple weeks into planning, they're like, "Forget it. That's not going to happen."
Yeah. I mean, I've got stuff on the calendar right now, and I'm like, okay, I see it on there, but we'll see. You know what I mean?
See.
Yeah.
But even trying to how are you keeping yourself entertained? Are you getting together and playing with other musicians and stuff? Are you able to go into the studio and jam or play outside, or
more just, definitely doing mostly stuff virtual as much as possible. Again, trying to be as multimedia. I mean, that's again, the one, I guess, semi-silver lining is it's kind of forced a lot of us to, like I mentioned earlier in the show about the OBS thing, like thinking about in terms of almost like you are a TV station or you're running a TV show, or, you got to think in those parameters, and, I brought up Bowie earlier. What would, if David Bowie, was just starting out, what would he do in this circumstances? And I could totally see him like embracing it, you know what I mean? And like, doing videos every day and new songs every day. And I mean, that's the one cool thing is you can just constantly keep releasing more, create content, release content. And I think people they want stuff that they're not expecting everything to be crystal perfect. If like I release, like before in the past, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if it's perfect, if it's good enough to release yet. Look, I messed up on this note here, or the drum's a little weird there. And it's like, that's part of the appeal to it is seeing some of the warts on it too as well. And same with the live thing, as like us talking right now, it's like, we're not pre-recording this. You're not going and editing this. And it's like people, if I say something stupid or I look stupid or whatever, that's part of the fun of the whole thing, is because that spontaneity of it. So I think, if you kind of embrace that side of it, the virtual side of it, I think that, I think even after things do get back to normal, I think we're developing. I mean, for instance, like jumping industries right now, but in the cinema industry, with everything with the movie theaters right now, which breaks my heart. But, I think a lot of that stuff with the movie theater stuff, it was going to happen anyway, pandemic or not, with the on-demand society that we are right now with streaming. I mean, with the exception of, movies like the Avengers and, big ticket movies, but most stuff, I think people want to be able, like, they like that convenience of be able to pull up when they want to. But
the thing is that the movie going experience has been such a part of our lives, our whole lives,
believe me,
right?
I'm not downplaying it. Don't get me wrong.
I'm just saying the way it connected generations. You'd go with your parents and you'd go with your girlfriend as you're growing up. And then I take my kids and take them to the kid movies. Like that whole experience is done. Now the theaters have opened up back in LA and you go, wow. And I think you can go, it's like 25% or something like that.
Okay,
but there's nobody actually in there and there's nobody actually going to the theater. So it's just created a whole, it's such a fuck. I hate it. I really, it's driving me crazy. It's kind of like, it's sucking our lifeblood because we're social people. But like you said, it's created new outlets. We're creators. You're a creator. You're a content creator. You're always doing something. You always have been. And the same thing with me. I'm someone that's always been creating and putting myself out there. And this was just another way for me to communicate and reach out and touch my friends when you can.
Right.
Right. So what are you looking forward to when this is finally over?
Well, without stating the obvious, it's playing live and being around people. I mean, I miss the, on my streaming show, Saturday Night Chit-Chat, I had Laura Lee from Krungbin on about a month or two ago. And one thing I tell us to every guest, and what she said, and it always stuck with me, is she said the best part about playing live is the messiness of it. And that's what I miss, is the messiness of it. Like, knocking your microphone over, bumping into someone, not just the messiness for the band, but for the audience, and, barreling your way to get to the stage through people and sweat on you and all that kind of stuff. I miss that so much.
And all the elements you have to deal with when you're playing live, the different stages, the different clubs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, the unsureness of it all is the best part about it. We try to do that with the virtual thing live, and it's, it can be tough. And so just being around people and just feeling that energy of playing live. I mean, it's tough. When every musician, I'm sure every musician you have on your show, most of us have been doing this the majority of our life. It's like, I haven't been home this long. I can't remember, since I've probably been like 14 years old or something like that. So, and I mean, believe me, there's some things I love about it, being at home. It's nice being able to kind of refocus and stuff, but, I still miss, I miss pilots and love travel stops and truck stops and,
Yeah, but isn't it amazing how we were feed that you get tired of it and you're like, oh God, because when you're on the road after a while, it starts getting to you, because when you're taking your 15th flight in 3 months, you're just like, okay, again, I got to go to the airport again, and now that's a whole part of my life that's gone. That I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
wait. And even when you would complain about whatever it is, that you're sitting in traffic or I got to go drive to work. Now I'm like, well, I drive anywhere. I don't really care.
Right. Yeah. It's such a weird, I mean, who would have thought, back in March or April, I mean, I knew we were going to be shut down for a while, but like you said, like, all to see what's going to happen in 2 weeks. I'll see what's going to happen in 2 weeks. It seems like we've been saying that forever, Now we definitely are going to see what's going to happen. What is it, about 3 weeks from now?
Yeah, we got 20 days, I think, is what I heard today.
Shoot, I mean, that's going to be the biggest. I think that's going to be the big game changer immediately. So we'll see where that goes. But
yeah. It's so hard. The past 4 years, we've all been waiting for this moment. I think. I mean, I knew it from the get-go that this wasn't going to be a good situation. Because I grew up in Atlantic City, so I know the kind of guy that Trump is. I saw what he did to that town and how he pays his bills and everything out there. So it's just amazing that the people had and I did give him the benefit of the doubt. I wanted him to do the best for the country. I thought maybe he could rise to the occasion and put his pettiness aside, but boy, he sure proved me wrong quick. And
and you always think there's that thing about I mean, we won't go down this rabbit hole too much, but it's like, you always think there's the the presidency is such a big office. You think that like is going to, whoever it is, I don't care if you're the craziest person in the world, that's going to see, when you see these people like seeping in and that amount of power you have and that amount of responsibility you have, it's going to fundamentally change a person. But, I don't know if in this case, if that really happened too much.
Or to make a person want to unify the people that voted against him and get everybody on the same side and just be a cheerleader for America.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, these guys over here who hate everybody that's not white. I mean, it's just we kind of deserve this. I mean, in some ways, we got what we deserved, because we've just played it too wild and loose, and everybody's like, oh, reality star can do this. A friend of mine just watched Idiocracy. Have you seen that movie?
No, I don't know that.
Oh, it's Mike Judge. You know who Mike Judge is?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
He made a movie called Idiocracy, and it's about a wrestler becoming president and what happens.
Oh, wow.
And I'm really doing the worst one line of it. It's about the reality star becomes president. You should watch it, and you will thank me later, because it's a hilarious movie too.
Is it a streaming thing? Is it on one of the streaming services?
You might have to pay $3.99 or something like that to watch it, because I'm sure that's what's happening. One thing I noticed about everything is anytime I go to watch anything now, I'm like, I said to the kids, let's watch The Matrix, because I thought we're living in the Matrix right now. It's just so weird, right? So I went to go watch The Matrix. $5, like everything's $5.
Yeah. Well, that's all good. Yeah.
Everybody's making money. They've all figured it out. because
Yeah.
everybody's home and wants to be entertained. So, I mean,
Yep.
it's a new paradigm for all of us. I wanted to share a couple of your links. Talk about how you use your social media to keep in touch with everybody.
Oh, great. I appreciate that. Yeah. And that's obviously that is our gateway to stay in touch with everybody. Instagram, Freekbass. I'm a big Twitter guy too, as well. Twitter.com/Freekbass. And
You're easy to find. Freekbass with 2 E's.
yes, that's all. As long as you get the spelling right, it comes. It's real easy. Yeah.
And this is your website, and this is where you post the music up there, merch, everything you can find, right?
Yep. All the everywhere. That's the go-to, the headquarters for sure.
That's a beautiful thing. And what do you got planned? What do you got coming up?
Well, like I said, we just released a new single on Friday, a song called Under Cremeria on Color Red. The video gets released. I think it's Wednesday this week is coming out. And
how are you shooting videos right now?
What's that?
How are you shooting the videos? Are you using found footage? Are you shooting some new stuff?
No, well, for instance, we had, it was tough, this last one, because we wanted to all be in the same space for this one. So we all wore masks. We shot this one in a warehouse predominantly. Now, Sammy obviously is in New York City, or she's in Brooklyn. So we filmed hers. She had hers filmed up there and edited it with what we did down here with the rest of the band. And, but when we shot it, we shot in this big warehouse, we say socially distanced, and wore masks when we weren't filming. And then when we were filming, we took the masks off and stuff like that. So it's been a little bit of jumping through hoops and barrels, but we've been managed to do it. We have this amazing director named Angie Wilson, and she's a super creative person, and she's able to, each video has its own. Our last video, which is out right now, it's called Getting On, is about getting out and voting. So we kind of created this whole thing where we went to voting stations and act like we were voting, and it was really cool. So yeah, so that's a nice thing about releasing a single month. We're able to kind of put a visual with whatever the single is each month. And then I think Color Red, they're going to take all these songs with a few remixes and then actually put them together as a full EP or LP then eventually too as well. I think that's what their plan is. So
how many songs you got left in the can?
I've got, well, I mean, we're going to be doing the single thing for at least into 2021. Yeah. I've got a song. I did a song. Once I get done with the Color Red stuff, Stefan Lassard, the bass player from Dave Matthews, and I did a track together. We're going to release. Doug Wimbish from Living Color and I did a track together. We're going to release. Nigel Hall, from Lettuce, and Nigel and I did a track together, which I'm super excited about. It's very Sly and the Family Stone sounding track that we're going to release. So I've got a bunch of stuff on top of the Color Red stuff. I'm going to be constantly releasing along with videos, well into next year. So there's going to be plenty of material going to be released from now on as long as I can, really. Yeah.
Just got to keep it pumping.
Keeping on. Yeah. And hopefully eventually we'll be able to play these songs live. Now, Victor Wooten, you know who Victor Wooten is?
Of course I knew.
Yeah.
One of the most amazing bass players. Like the first time I saw Victor Wooten with, who was with Bella Fleck, right?
Yeah, of course.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Well, first of all, everybody in that band was ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But Victor Wooten was just like jaw-dropping bass player.
Oh, he's great. And he's one of the greatest people. Well, him and I are talking about doing again, when we can start touring again, is going out and doing with a bunch of bass players playing like iconic bass lines, like, Papa Was a Rolling Stone or For the Love of Money. But the catch is not just that we're going out and playing those songs, but playing those songs on the original instruments they were recorded on. So like Anthony Jackson's bass on For the Love of Money, or See If I Can Talk Boot into Let Me Use the Star bass for one of the Bootsy songs, and like, so it'll be, and we're going to call it something like Bass Museum or something like that. So it'll be like, like we're almost like live players creating this museum piece of these classic bass lines. So that's kind of the one thing we've kind of been toying with on deck, as well. So
this week on your show you had O'Teal. That was great. It was a great interview. It was amazing to hear his stories. Who else you got lined up?
Well, I mentioned Doug Wimbish earlier. I got he's gonna be on next week's show. Yeah. So, and got waiting to hear a few more confirmations from people here coming up soon too as well. But Doug Wimbish will be my next guest. So
that's the hard part. Like booking guests is hard, isn't it?
It is. Well, not only is it hard, like on that side, getting people, but it's also weird. I'm actually getting publicists and band members now asking me about the show, which is really weird being on, I'm used to being that guy on the other side of it. Like, hey,
Right.
I got some new stuff. Can I come on your show and promote my new thing? But it's weird having like being someone like having people ask you to be on the show or publicist, so I mean, it's cool. It's just, it's a weird, again, being on that side of the microphone is an interesting side to see how that side lives.
And it's not that bad. It's really amazing to use that part of your brain. I mean, I really find that I've gotten so much better at just being able to talk about nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And it's funny because, and I'm sure you do the same thing. Like when I first started on the show, I would make little questions for myself. So, there wasn't any dead air. And it's like, once you start talking, yeah, those questions go right at the window. If anything, I have to always like, I'm watching the clock because I feel like I could go for forever,
Right. And I agree. In the beginning, I was taking copious notes. My kids were like, hey, you're going to talk to Tommy Chong. You better have some questions. So I had questions. And it helps when you have somebody who has a career that's like 6 decades long.
Oh, of course.
Because they've done so much, and it's really hard for you to figure out, well, what should I ask next? Or if you hit a hole. But nowadays I go in and I do prep, I read your bio, I listen to some of your music, I've seen your show. So I just kind of grab a sense of what my guest is like. So when you get into it, you can really let loose. But you're an interesting guy. You got a lot of different things going on. So it leads to interesting conversations. And I think that's the most important thing is everybody has a story to tell. And some people are better at it than others.
Sure. Yeah.
So have you had any, I'm not going to ask you who, but have you had a couple of interviews where you're sitting there in the middle of the interview and you're going,
oh yeah. Yeah. Well, you're like, exactly. Yeah. Some people are like,
teeth, right?
Yeah. Literally some people, you can ask one question and the whole thing, next thing you look and in like 45 minutes have passed and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize it. But then sometimes it's literally like pulling teeth, some people just start, even musicians that have been around, big name musicians, they still are a little uncomfortable in that setting. It's just, they just weren't built for it. And I get it. It's not like that's what we signed up for necessarily. And, so, that's why I try to at least have some questions on deck. If there's any lull in the conversation, I can always jump to that real quick if need be,
Yeah. And I also found that a lot of guys, like I remember talking to Ben Jaffe from Pres Hall, and when we were talking about it, he's like, you know what, Kravitz, if you would have asked me to do this 4 months ago, I wouldn't even know how to put my computer on. And now I'm going live every day or once a week.
Yeah.
And I got my camera and I got the light. And, it's just, it's a whole process you have to learn and teach yourself. You had to learn OBS. I haven't still taken the time to do that. I use StreamYard, which is good because it's easy. It's plug and play, but I could see like when I see your show and you do the overlays and you have all that stuff that you can lay in there with your sponsors and all that stuff. It really looks great. It looks amazing. So
it is, it's nice. And you're right. And what you do is you create scenes. It's probably similar to what they do here. And then you have different things within that scene and you can just kind of jump between scenes. It's almost like creating like almost a little play almost, it's like scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, that type of thing, Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it really unveils a different part of yourself, I think. And somebody that's used to be on the road like you and I all the time, to be home, it's a way that we cope with staying sane and reaching out to our fans and keeping them all plugged in.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that's really important too, I found it is the time. Like if you say you're going to be on at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever time your time is, there are a big chunk of people out there that they, you may think, it's online and whatever. No, they're like, I've been late a couple times on certain things, and I've had people like, well, what's going on? Why aren't you here? That they expect you to be, just like if you're watching a TV show, they expect you to be on at that time.
Yeah, the first day I missed, I went 50 days straight without missing a day.
Wow.
The first 50 days of the pandemic, starting March 16th. And I think it was the beginning of May before I took a day off. And I remember the first day I took a day off, people were like, where are you? And I'm like, hey, I need a break,
Right.
The family was getting a little lonely.
Well, and I think that's the common thread I also have with other musicians I talk to, because we can do everything now at home, whether it be music or teaching or whatever. It's hard I feel like I'm always working on, like I can work nonstop if I want to, like how do you actually take a break away, because, you can work nonstop. And so that's I found myself kind of running myself into the ground a couple of times, where I was just like, I just got to like take a deep breath and, chill out for an evening, because I'm just always like, my mind's like, oh, I could go do this. I could go do this right now, and it's like, you just got to still give yourself a little bit of a breather here and there, as hard as it may be, because I'm just lucky to be able to work. I mean, not everybody does teach like I do. And the musicians that don't have that luxury, it's, or just haven't had the experience to do that. I mean, it's got to be tough, I'm sure,
Well, it's also interesting when you talk to the different guys out there that are on Go Lively that have never taught before, but they've been professional musicians now for decades. And now they have to totally assess their art and how they do what they do and try to explain that to someone else. So everybody's kind of getting introspective into their process and what it is they do too. It's a very unique thing. I really look forward to the music that's going to be made when this is all over, because I think it's going to be such a release. I can't even imagine what that first large scale concert that's fully packed with everybody in is going to be like. But I know one thing, tickets are going to be a bitch.
Yeah, you got that right. Yeah.
It's good to be doing it. Freekbass, anything you want to tell everybody before I let you go back to freaky land?
No, man, I'm just, thank you for doing this, Jeff. I mean, this is such an important thing, staying connected with people. I appreciate you really having me on the show. I'm a big fan of the show. And yeah, I mean, this is, keep doing, if you can do another 50 days in a row without losing your mind.
Well, 5 days a week is plenty. Trust me. Perfect. So I'm at it. I'm doing it. And I look forward to seeing you around the hood. And thanks. I'm part of the Osiris family. And thanks for coming on today, Freekbass. And we look forward to more great things coming out of your corner of Cincinnati there.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. Peace out.
Have a good one. Take care. There you go. The one and only Freekbass on 420 Live today. Everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. Peace, love, happiness. A big hug. You want to hear what we got tuned in? Tomorrow, Steve Eichner. Steve photographed the Limelight Disco in New York City back in the day, and there's a brand new book out called In the Limelight. We're looking forward to seeing Steve. There he is. We will see you tomorrow, and we're going to see our friends Nick Casarino and Jen Hartswick on Wednesday, hopefully. She said that we're going to stop by and say hi to everybody. Thursday still open, and Friday, David Shaw from Revivalist. So I'll be working on Thursday, and everybody have a good night out there. Don't believe everything you see on TV, folks. It's going to be all right. We're going to take care of each other. We're all going to vote this monster out and move on. Next, we're going to forget what he ever did. Not even going to matter. See you.